So, it seems like there's no questions. I think someone's going to get them. I feel like I should say, in case you can't tell, I have like my L plate on. I haven't done this before. Yeah, we all do. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, so we thought it'd be nice just for us to introduce ourselves first, so that you know who you're talking to. So I'm Venerable Achala, and I've been living at Dhammasara since 2012, and I've been a bhikkhuni for 9 years. And my name Achala, it means unshakable, which feels very ironic at the moment.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. So my name is Venerable Pamochana, and my name means basically setting free and liberation. And I've been at Dhammasara. I started my Anagarika time 2020. I came in November 2020, and I spent 2 weeks in quarantine because I came from Victoria. So I spent my 40th birthday at Dhammasara in quarantine, waiting to become an Anagarika, which I couldn't think of a better way to spend my 40th birthday. So I became Anagarika in December of 2020, and then I took seminary or novice ordination in, I think it was June 2022, and became a bhikkhuni just February this year. So yeah, okay, pass it on.
Hello, my name is Venerable Natika. I'm originally from Indonesia. My name means nothing. Yeah.
Ajahn Brahm gave you that name.
Yeah, Ajahn Brahm gave my the name. So I came to Dhammasara since 2022. Started my Anagarika training. I took novice ordinations last year. January 2024, yeah.
Hello, my name is Venerable Anupama. I ordained just a few weeks ago, last month. So I'm the newest nun at Dhammasara. Yeah, so today I will let my seniors answer your questions. Ajahn Hasapanna gave me my name. Anupama means incomparable, unique. Yeah.
So we didn't really discuss how we were going to do this, but maybe because I'm the senior, I'll read out the questions and you guys can answer them. I thought that was I thought that was a good idea. No. Okay. Okay, so this is the first question. It says, "Dear Bhikkhunis," but it's for all of us. Yes. So, can you please talk about what a day in the life of a nun is like? Can you become a nun if you are a night owl and have never been a morning person? What is the hardest thing about being a nun, and what is the best thing about being a nun? So maybe I'll answer a few and you can, yeah, okay. So can you please talk about what a day in the life of a nun is like? So the most important thing is breakfast is at 6:30. So if you want breakfast, be down at the main area at 6:30. You can wake up at, there's no set time, so you can wake up at whatever time. We do have 2 mornings a week, so Mondays and Fridays. There's a morning sit, so that's at 5 o'clock. But that's only for the junior members.
Less than 5 hours.
So if you're less than 5 reigns, so the senior nuns all sleep in. No, they get up quite early. So some people get up at 3, some might get up later. And then after breakfast, we have a work meeting. So all the lay guests and all the nuns and anagarikas come to that. and we discuss what work is going to be done, if there's any appointments, and then we go off and do the work, and then we have lunch at 10:30. So there's a short ceremony every day that happens, and then we eat lunch, obviously, and most days after lunch we're free. Yeah, and then also 2 days a week, on Wednesdays and Saturdays, we have an evening program. So sometimes on Wednesdays we'll actually come to Jhana to listen to Ajahn Brahm give a talk to the monks and nuns. Or sometimes we might just stay at Dhammasara and listen to a talk, do some chanting and do some meditation together. There's lots of things that we do that you probably wouldn't expect, like use chainsaws and excavators and fix toilets. We fixed Ajahn Hasapanna's toilet the other day. So I'd never thought I would use so many power tools when I became a nun. So there's lots of things like that. But basically the day involves a lot of free time as well for us to just spend in our kutis meditating. Do you want to answer anything?
Sure. What was the next bit? Yes, can you become a nun if you are a night? Oh, sure, sorry.
Yes,
Microphone might help. Okay, so can you become a nun if you are a night owl and have never been a morning person? Look, as long as you can make it for a 6:30 breakfast, then you're going to be fine. We have some nuns that are more night owls and they do stay up quite late and meditate, in the evening, and then, wake up later and just make it for the 6:30 breakfast. Other people are morning people and they'll wake up of a morning, and that's when their meditation is more suitable for them. So I believe you can, even if you've never been a morning person, maybe just try and make it for breakfast at 6:30 and you'll be right. What is the hardest thing about being a nun? What has been probably the hardest thing for me? It's whatever's been the hardest has honestly come from myself. Like if it hasn't been anything external, it's been either the pressure I have put on myself, or it's been some way I'm looking at something that is very unhelpful, and just that's probably been the hardest thing for me to work with and to me to face up to. Like I did a lot of running away in my life, and that was my coping mechanism, to be able to run from things, to be able to avoid things, to be able to block things out, distract myself. So for me, at first when I became a nun, I felt like I was yet again running away from the world, but it's been the absolute opposite. I've really had to face up and front up to a lot of things that I wouldn't have had to, be it in the world, So I've really had to confront myself and confront how I see things, and the pressure that I put on myself, or even at times when I feel I'm working too hard, it's like, well, no one is making me work that hard. It's my own pressure upon myself. So that has probably been the hardest thing, is actually me being my own obstacle and just working with that. So I shall pass it on.
What is the best thing about being a nun? Well, doing nothing. Sometimes I feel in a nun monastery like the movie of Groundhog Day. Do you know? So sometimes we forget about the day, and we know the day by the food we receive that day. Oh, this means Wednesday, because it's the same food again and again. Or is this like Monday or Tuesday, because same donators who came to the monastery, and sometimes they bring the same food. Yeah. So maybe in Groundhog Day, the movie, they break through the cycles by being in love, but maybe in monastery we have to break through by not reborn again. Okay.
Oh, okay. I was going to say the hardest thing about being a nun is doing things like this. Okay, I think we've answered all of those questions. Let's see. Dear Ayahs, are there standard bhikkhuni ordination procedures so that bhikkhunis ordained in one country is recognized in other countries? I came across a Malaysian bhikkhuni ordained in Sri Lanka but was not recognized back in Malaysia. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I think as far as I know, there are standard procedures, so that's laid down in the Vinaya, and that's what we follow at Dhammasara. I know in some countries they don't formally recognize bhikkhunis. As I think most of you know, there's some controversy around this. So like in Buddhist countries, like even in Sri Lanka, where you can get bhikkhuni ordination, it's not officially recognized. So maybe that's what happened in Malaysia. Maybe the monks or the bhikkhu sangha there didn't recognize this person. Yeah, I'm not sure. Anything to add?
Could have been another tradition.
Yeah. Can you explain again about the part where there is no need to offer nuns food during breakfast versus during lunch? Yes. So I'm glad you asked this again. So I think the confusion is that whoever wrote this question doesn't see the part where the tables get offered at breakfast. So after we go into the kitchen after chanting, someone will actually offer us the tables. So the food's considered offered, and then we can help ourselves. Whereas at lunchtime, the tables are not offered. So the donors, the people who bring the food, and all of you help to put food into our bowls. And that's the same, the monks keep the same rules. So if you gave me a sandwich now, I could not keep it with me and eat it tomorrow morning. So I can't store food. So you have to give it to me after dawn, but before midday, and then I can eat the sandwich. Yeah. So hopefully that clarifies it for that person. Okay. I noticed the heater has been turned on for the first time. I guess we know what comes next now. He. I actually have a fob watch. But I can't find it. Here we go. So, here we go. Okay. Dear Aye, what can the lay community do to better support your path and practice? So, I mean, I don't want to talk about just the bhikkhunis at Dhammasara, but in general, wherever you live, go and visit the nuns' monasteries. So if you live in Perth, there's Dhammasara, and there's also Ayah Seri, who lives in Samson. If you live in New South Wales, there's Santi Forest Monastery, and in Melbourne, Newbury. And if you live overseas, like in England, there's Anukampa, and I'm sure there's many more. You can go and get to know the nuns, and when you get to know them, you can learn about what their specific needs are and how you can best support them. Do you have anything to add? Like what we need? Or? Yeah.
Okay. In terms of probably Dhammasara, like what Venerable Achula said is great if you can support your local community, because I mean, Dhammasara, we are quite fortunate in getting a lot of support, but in terms for us, you know, I could speak a little bit to that. What I find would be helpful is if anyone has some time to volunteer, you're most welcome to, be it male or female. Don't think just because it's a nun's monastery that males are excluded. You're more than welcome and more than appreciated. And it's completely okay if you don't have the time or the energy to volunteer, and you're welcome to come and stay, you know, or if you're thinking of ordaining, come and stay and check the place out. Or just even for me, what I find supportive is just seeing people like yourselves attending this meditation retreat or coming to the monastery. That in itself I find very inspiring. Like I see some days at the monastery when so many people have come, even on a public holiday or something like that, or a Sunday when they could be doing something else. You know, so many people are and don't find the worth in the Dhamma or what we're doing, and just even have that, you know, and know people have so much faith in the Dhamma and want to put it in their life is inspiring for us as well. So, yeah, thank you.
Hello, Bhikkhunis. Wait. Okay. Can one of you please explain or give a story about women in Buddha's time wanting to ordain, and did the Buddha ordain any nuns? I remember a story of a child who lost her children and husband in one day, and she attended one of the Buddha's talks. Was she the first nun bhikkhuni? So yes, the Buddha definitely did ordain women, lots of women. I think you're thinking of Patachara. I don't think she was the first bhikkhuni. According to tradition, I think Mahaprajapati Gautami, who was the Buddha's foster mother or stepmother, was the first bhikkhuni, although we're not really sure if that's actually true, but that's the tradition. But bhikkhunis or fully ordained nuns are definitely a part of original Buddhism 2,500 years ago, and he definitely did ordain them. So that's very clear. I don't think anyone has any doubts about that. Yeah.
Would you like to tell any stories?
No? Okay. Okay. No. Okay. We'll come back to that one. Ajahn Brahm often tells us about the moments he was really inspired by the acts of Ajahn Chah. What is your most inspiring moment like that? I would say for me the most inspiring moments, I actually really like ordinations. I liked my ordinations, but I also like going to other people's ordinations. And I think they're in my mind because we've had a lot recently. I think in March and February we had 3 Anagarika ordinations, 1 bhikkhuni and 1 novice. And for me, being able to participate in that and seeing other women come along and being able to help them, like we helped them sew their robes or learn their chanting or just talk to them about, you know, what's going to happen. For me, participating in that has brought me a lot of inspiration. And I think because it connects you back with your own, just that initial going forth, that spirit of renunciation. And it's nice to be reminded of that when you see it in other people. So recently that's what's brought me a lot of inspiration.
I wouldn't say, well, one specific moment for me was my seminary, my Papaja ordination. For some reason, that this brought a lot more inspiration than my bhikkhuni ordination, perhaps because I was a little bit unwell when I had my bhikkhuni ordination, but I think also when I took my Papaja, my seminary ordination, that was the first step of going forth. And I remember just thinking to myself for a few days afterwards, it was like, I'm in brown. You know, I was just so stoked, so happy to have gotten to that point. And so that's one distinct moment. But I know what also I find very inspiring is just especially how much and how many people, I won't mention names because I'll miss people out, but especially how many monks have done so much for women and for bhikkhuni ordinations. And often when I reflect upon that, you know, that really helps inspire me in my practice and really gives me energy and gratitude. And just to so many people that have supported it and made it possible for me to go forth as a bhikkhuni and so many others, and to see that spreading around the world. So those are not specific moments, but things that really help fuel my inspiration at times.
Well, for me, it's like Ajahn Brahm is really inspired by the act of Ajahn Chah. Well, for me, I get inspired by Ajahn Brahms, what he give this like 9-day retreat. Because when I first joined also as a lay person is in 2011, and he give like the Dhamma that I've never heard before. That's like the path is possible, like that it can be achieved in the now also can be achieved, like timeless.
Yeah, for me also ordinations, and like Venerable Achala said, like this in the last few months, seeing the new Anagarikas, the new batch of Anagarikas starting monastic training, and then my own ordination, and then a bhikkhuni ordination in Dhammasara. So that was very inspiring. And also I enjoy coming to Bodhinyana on the Wednesdays. So that's also very inspiring for me to listen to the Dhamma from Ajahn Brahm.
Okay. Dear Venerable Nuns, could you please tell us what was the catalyst that drove you to renounce? How did nibbida to the 5 sense world develop? Could you please explain with some examples? With lots of metta, may you all be enlightened in this very lifetime. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, I'll go first. The catalyst that drove me to renounce. So it was at the point when I started working full-time. Not because I'm lazy, but because up until that point, like in high school, it's like, oh, you go to university next. And then at university, it's like, you get a job. And then when I started working full-time, it was like, what happens next? You know, I do this job. I had a nice job. I was a hydrogeologist. It was the exact kind of job I wanted, where I did lots of field work. I wasn't stuck in an office. I worked with nice people. But it was like, I do this for, 40 years, and then I retire, and then I die. And it just seemed kind of pointless. And there was also lots of things I was getting that everyone around me told me should make me happy. Like I was earning money, I had friends. Because I had a full-time job, my parents were like, oh, you can buy a house. So I bought a house. And this is something that's supposed to make you feel happy. And it made me feel like I was suffocating, actually. It's like, I don't have a house, I have a mortgage now, and now I have to work. And I could kind of see this picture. I have a house, and I can get a partner, and some kids, and I know the world tells you that you're supposed to want these things, but to me they felt like more nails in the coffin, basically. So I thought there was something a little bit wrong with me for a while. But I was already practicing meditation. I was already doing retreats. And I realized that the time I spent doing retreats and the time I spent visiting monasteries, that's actually what made me happy. And there was like a sense of inner fulfillment that I got from those things, from the meditation, that I wasn't getting at work. There was a sense of satisfaction, I think. So I think that was a big catalyst for me spending more time doing retreats. And then it was when I visited Dhammasara for the first time in 2010, it was just like, oh, I can do this full time, basically. You know, when you see other nuns and you see there's a process to becoming a nun, that's really what made me want to renounce. How did nibbida to the five sense world develop? I think it just happens naturally. When you follow the happiness of meditation, you naturally draw away from other types of happiness. I remember I used to like to go and see live music, to see like live bands play in Melbourne with my friends. And as I was practicing, I remember being out with my friends one night and we were seeing some band. And I was just like, what am I doing here? Like, it's dark and the floor is actually really dirty and everybody's drunk. And the music's loud and my feet hurt. You know, a few years earlier, I would have been enjoying myself. You know, I would have enjoyed the music. I wouldn't have been too bothered about the floor. And slowly, I kept going with my friends because, you know, I wanted to be nice to my friends. But slowly, it just seemed, I just kept asking myself, what am I doing here? I remember a friend of mine, not long before I came to visit Dhammasara for the first time, she wanted to go see AC/DC play in concert. And she didn't have anyone else who would go with her, so I went with her. But I was like, but we have to sit down. I was only like 26 at the time, but I was like, I can't do this mosh pit business anymore. It's like, it's too hard. So it just happens naturally, I think, as you practice.
The catalyst for me, well, I'll backtrack a little bit. I guess in some ways it was my whole life, you know. It just felt quite empty to me, you know, just the worldly life. And I always felt like, yeah, there was something wrong with me, you know. Everyone else seemed happy that, you know, and I knew from an early age, I think when I was probably about 12, that I didn't want to have kids. I didn't want to get married. Prison looked like a better option than that. Like, I really did not want to do that. And a career, I was like, what do I really want to do? And people said, oh, you need money, you need to get a house, you need to do this. And it's just like, I never wanted a house, you know, that just felt like I'd be tied down. And money for what? You know, it all seemed very empty. And I was very lost for, I think, a long time in my life, because just what everyone else found meaning in, I just couldn't find it. And it came to a point in my life where I was very unwell. I'd actually spent a few stints in hospital. I was actually pretty close to death. I was very unwell. And everything just came to head in my life. And I'm like, what am I doing? You know, and really just had to look at my life. And around that time, I sort of naturally enjoyed meditation. I'd done some meditation before because I had spent time at ashrams and never really had much success in meditation, but this time my body just seemed to head that way for healing. And I just moved to an area which was close to the Buddhist Society of Victoria. And I started going for the meditations. I was very shy, so I'd just go in and just run away, basically. And so I attended the meditations, and then there was a retreat, a 9-day meditation retreat that I'd heard about. And it was actually held by Ajahn Brahm. It was a sutta retreat. I didn't know what suttas were. You know, I always was interested in Buddhism. Like I had spent some time in Southeast Asia and always gravitated towards temples, but never found a way to find out more about Buddhism. So I went on this Sutta retreat mostly because I just needed a 9-day meditation retreat. I felt that would be helpful. And I heard Ajahn Brahm talk about the suttas, and when I heard what the Buddha taught, I was just like, oh my, is this what the Buddha taught? I was just blown away. And I guess at that time it really resonated with me as well, with everything that I'd gone through in my life. And at that point, like Ajahn Brahm spoke about you could become a nun, and I'm like, really? I didn't know that because I'd spent some time in Southeast Asia but only ever seen monks, so I didn't actually realise you could do that. And he spoke about it, and my heart said to myself, that's what I'm going to do. You know, I want to ordain. But my head said to me, no way could you ordain. No one would ever ordain you. You're crazy, sort of thing, basically. And it took me a few years before my health was well enough to go to a monastery. And then in that time, you know, I sort of was... I said, I can't ordain, you know, I had a few reasons why I couldn't, and I realised I was the obstacle as to why I couldn't ordain. And I said to myself, look, I'll go to a monastery and I'll hate it. There'll be like so many rules and I'll just hate it. So I went to Dhammasara in 2019 for the first time, and I actually just loved it. It felt like home, and it was just like, it just felt like where I was meant to be. And so that, and it felt like, just like home. So there was a few sort of catalysts there that probably existed in my life. And nibbida towards the world, well, I think I probably had some nibbida, you know, for a lot of my life towards the world. And then when I heard the suttas and what the Buddha taught, I'm like, what else is there to do, you know, besides ordain, you know? So that, and then it just more and more as you come into meditation is to hear the word of the Buddha, and you just don't have interest in that anymore. It just lessens, you know, your heart's in the Dhamma.
So for me, since 2011, first 9-day retreat, I become like meditation addict. So I always go to 9-day Ajahn Brahm retreat every year, and also like any meditation retreat that I can join in my hometown, and start to stay at monastery, and then but not thinking about ordaining, and then staying at the Dhammasara a couple of times, and then one of the nuns saying, oh, why don't you ordain? And then I was thinking, at that time I'm still thinking, and then he said, what you're going to do in life? Well, she got point. If you don't like it, you can always leave. Oh, she got a point also. So here I am. So not special reason. And how nibbida for the 5 sense, I think it's not like completely, because I'm still here and not still enlightened yet. But for one sure, sometimes I feel it's slowly, because for meditation we thrown into the sixth sense world, like the mind. And before I joined the monastic, I become a Korean drama addict also. But then after letting it go, it's quite easy. I mean, yeah.
This makes me feel very nervous, holding a mic and speaking to the public. So I was born into a Buddhist family in Sri Lanka. I went to school there. I grew up in Sri Lanka. and I went to England for my higher education. And even though I was born into a Buddhist family, I wasn't a practicing Buddhist when I was in Sri Lanka. I found Ajahn Brahm on YouTube when I was in England, and I started watching his Friday night talks. And it was Ajahn Brahm who really inspired me and got me interested to really take it seriously and practice. And yeah, I came to Australia for the first time to stay at Bodhinyana for a few weeks. And then I stayed at Jhana Grove for the Rains retreat. And yeah, then finally went to Dhammasara for my 3 months there. And yeah, so I just did my initial stay at Dhammasara for 3 months. I really liked it. I like Ajahn Hasapanna. So I have a lot of respect for her. I felt like I found the right teacher for me. And then I applied for my Anagarika training, and yeah, so finished my Anagarika training recently, and here I am now. Yeah.
Dear Aye, I nearly got goosebumps when I saw the first Theravada Bhikkhunis and find Bhikkhuni chantings so nurturing and transcending. Your presence is so inspiring. Were there any surprises for you, internal or external, good or bad, as you embarked on this journey? Sadhu. Okay, thank you for your very kind words. Any surprises? I think I remember when I took Bhikkhuni ordination, I was quite surprised just at how much happiness it brought me. Even just on the day of my ordination, I was just unexpectedly, I mean, I knew I'd be happy, but I didn't expect how happy I would be. Because I had already been living as a nun at Dhammasara for like almost 2 years as a Samaneri. So, I mean, you can't really tell the difference, but Pamochana and I are Bhikkhunis, and Natika and Anupama are Samaneris. So we all live in the same monastery, we all eat alms food, we follow the same routine. So I just didn't understand how this taking Bhikkhuni ordination was going to change my life that much. But I did it anyway, and I was just surprised at the happiness that it brought. And it made me feel like I was included in the Sangha. When you request Bhikkhuni ordination, it's the Bhikkhuni Sangha. It's not just the preceptor, not just the teacher who ordains you. You're ordained by the Sangha. And in the chanting, you ask to be lifted up out of compassion. It's Anukampang Upadaya, so it's like you're lifted up out of compassion. May the Bhikkhuni Sangha lift me up out of compassion. And I think it's that sense of being part of the Sangha that brings that extra happiness, and also obviously the extra rules and things, but that came later on. But I think on the day, that was what brought me that surprising happiness. Okay. Okay. Considering the inequality and prejudice against women in Theravada Buddhism, what are the important things to consider when choosing a place to be ordained? Yeah, I think whether you're a woman or a man, you have to connect with the community. So wherever it is, go and visit them, stay with them. I think it's important that you connect with the Sangha. So even though there may be different monasteries within Theravada Buddhism, all the communities will be different, and you'll connect with different ones. So I think that's important. Considering I'm not sure what else to say for that one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's true. You say?
I just said that a monastery where they keep the Vinaya. I think that's important to find a good place. And there are many good teachers, but I think it's also important to find the right teacher for you, a teacher that you feel comfortable with.
What is something you have learned from Ajahn Hasapanna, either by example or her teachings? If there are too many questions, please feel free to skip this one. That's very kind. I think we're doing okay. Actually, something that Ajahn Hasapanna often says is that you don't have to try to be a good nun. Being a nun is already good. And I really like that because, like as Venerable Pramochana said, sometimes we cause ourselves a lot of suffering because we're trying so hard to be something, but we're actually already very good. Just living this life is already, it's pretty good, so we don't have to try that hard to do anything extra. And also, she has this very kind of stoic and stable quality. She just kind of plods along regardless of whatever drama is going on around her. And I mean, she's been through a lot. She was the most junior of the 4 first bhikkhunis, and now she's the abbot. I don't think she particularly thought it would work out that way, but whatever comes along, she just kind of deals with it without a lot of fuss and bother. And I think that example to me is very helpful because I get a bit excited sometimes, but you look at Ajahn Hasapanna and she's just like not too fussed. So, yeah.
For me, what I respect with Ajahn Hasapanna is his original, like Ajahn Brahm. We can feel his originality, right? So sometimes it's kind of hard to find it in the world because sometimes, people like maybe they care too much about what other people think or opinions. So sometimes who can be with someone who can be relaxed and ease with themselves is really nice. It's like resonate with my personality also. Yeah.
Yeah, mine's sort of an extension of what Venerable Natthika was saying. She really doesn't try to impress anyone. She's just like, she's like, often says, look, I can only do my best, if my best is not good enough for you, then what can I do kind of thing. It's my best, So I appreciate that, she's just like, oh, well, I'm just me, I'm just sitting here, sort of thing. And I appreciate having an abbot like that really is just like, well, I am what I am, and that's all I can do and that's all I can be. So that's a great example.
Yeah, I actually was thinking of that as I was pacing up and down in the nun's cottage before coming here, because she'll often say, I can only do my best, and if it's not good enough, then too bad. And so I had her voice in my head before. What made you take the decision to be a monastic? Thank you. I think we kind of already, we did that, right? Yeah, okay. Okay. What made you decide to become a nun? What are the steps of becoming a nun? Were there any hardships along the way? If so, could you please explain? How much practice did you have before ordaining? Okay. Would anyone like to explain the steps of becoming a nun? Me? Okay. Okay. So at Dhammasara, the process to become a nun is you come and stay as a lay guest for 3 months, and then if you still like us, you apply to become an anagarika. And the whole community actually has to agree to ordain someone as an anagarika. It's not just Ajahn Hasapanna, so just because she likes somebody, it is because you have to live with everybody, basically. And so then you are an anagarika for at least 1 year, and so an anagarika keeps 8 precepts. They wear white clothes and they help us with the driving and the cooking and handling money. They can still handle money. And then after a year as an anagarika, you apply to become a samaneri or a 10 precept nun. And again, it has to be like, obviously the anagarika has to want to do that, and the community also has a meeting and discusses it. And then you remain as a samaneri for 2 years. And then you apply to become a bhikkhuni, and it's the same process. The community will have a meeting and then say yes or no. Yeah. Was there anything else? That's pretty much it. We're also very fortunate here in Perth that you have, Ajahn Hasapanna is now senior enough to ordain other bhikkhunis. So for a long time she wasn't. So she ordained herself in 2009. So when I ordained as a bhikkhuni, she's not my preceptor. So there was a nun from Indonesia called Ayasantini who's my preceptor. But now we actually have Ajahn Hasapanna, and we have enough bhikkhunis to do bhikkhuni ordinations without having to fly nuns from anywhere. So that's actually quite a rare thing in the world. Were there any hardships along the way? You're looking at me. Okay, thank you.
I think for me, just sometimes it's the day in, day out, like not big things, but just the day in, day out, you know, and when you're an anagarika, it's 7 days a week, and it's the same people and the same stuff, and sometimes just that can just grate on you, especially when you're tired, you know, you might be unwell, your mind's getting a bit negative, you know, you're doing a lot of things that you don't really want to do, you know, and sometimes that can lead to the hardships. You know, I found that you can just get fed up over very small things, and for some reason, I don't know what it is, but in monastic life, little things get really amplified. Like, I'm not sure if you've, like, what's the Kosambi Sutta, if anyone's familiar with that, about, you know, how the big argument between monks occurred and what it was over. It was basically over water in a toilet dipper that nearly divided the Sangha. So sometimes, yes, so you see, this is how sometimes things can be in monastic life. It's the mundane, everyday things that can just build up and irritate you. So I wouldn't say I've come across any like big hardships or big things. It's just been those everyday things that you're just pushing through, and sometimes it's really difficult and you're tired and everything like that. So, and that's been the times when you've really just had to stop and get perspective, because sometimes it's very easy to lose perspective. In monastic life, you can get bogged down by the little small things, the everyday things, and you forget about the big picture. You know, you forget to allow yourself to take a little bit of time out, go out the bush, get a bit of perspective and see the beautiful of what you are doing, and, you know, really come back to like how beautiful it is to live this life, you know, how grateful you are. Everything you have is because of the generosity of others, and really come back to what, you know, who else gets to live a life where everything I do is part of a service, and things like that. So the hardships are really just coming, I found, from my own attitude and just starting to get negative and losing perspective, and that can happen very easily. So you really have to just keep up your inspiration in monastic life, you know, especially after you've been there for a few years. It can be really inspiring when you first come in, but sometimes things just bog you down. So just to keep up that inspiration, and I guess that's been the hardships for me, just those mundane things that you would think was nothing.
Yeah, and I was going to say, 2,500 years later, we still have very robust conversations about bathroom cleanliness at Dhammasara. So it's still a topic of discussion. We've had long meetings about bathrooms. How much practice did you have before ordaining? Not much, yeah. Everyone has varying degrees. So some people might have been practicing for many years, and some people, they've only done not many retreats. So it's not like you have to be at a certain stage in your meditation to ordain. I actually remember when I was about 18 or 19, I visited a monastery. I was going to a monastery in Victoria, Ajahn Kalyana's monastery in Warburton, and I saw a samanera, so a novice monk ordination for the first time. And actually Ajahn Brahm was there conducting the ordination because it was the first ordination for that monastery. I would have been about 18, I think. And I didn't know the person ordaining. I just went along with my auntie that day. And I had all this, inspiration, and I started crying when I saw this person ordaining who I didn't know. And I was like, oh, what's going on? And I had this thought, oh, I wonder if I could ever do that. And of course, I immediately answered my own question and said, no, I could never do something like that. I thought you had to be like some very advanced practitioner, someone who's like almost enlightened to ordain. And then a few years later, when I visited Dhammasara, and you got to know the nuns, and you find out, actually, no, we're all quite normal people with very strange neuroses and strange habits. But we're all just trying, basically. It's not to put us down, but to make it achievable. Sometimes I think you look at monastics and you might think that they're like way ahead of you on the path, but that might not necessarily be the case. Nothing to add.
Yeah, just like Ajahn Brahm said, thinking is more harder than doing.
Yes. Okay. Retreat is perfect, excellent, and fantastic. But one thing, I can't tell you because you are a monk. Oh, okay. I see, you're getting your own back now. Okay. What is the most challenging thing in monastic life as a nun? What helps you to endure the hardships of monastic life as a nun? No. You already answered?
But
okay.
you're welcome to.
I'm welcome. I think you did a good job. What's the most important thing a nun needs? I would say faith and inspiration, because they help keep you going, basically. I'd say for me, Ajahn Brahm provides that a lot. Like when I go there on a Wednesday evening, that's like I get topped up with faith and inspiration, and then that keeps you going again. So,
I would have to agree with Venerable Achala. That is what's going to see you through, through any sort of times. Like sometimes I've bowed down to the Buddha in the hall and just looked at the Buddha and just, almost had tears in my eyes of just so much gratitude and just, and that's what's gotten me through any difficult, mundane times that I've had, just coming back to the inspiration of what I'm doing and why I went forth. So that's, I find, what has sustained me.
okay. I think we've done this. So how did you find the process of becoming a monastic? What is the monastic life like for bhikkhunis? I think we've covered this, right? Yeah, okay. It's very kind of you to ask very easy questions. Basically. Okay, wow. Okay, dear Ajahn, no words to express my gratitude towards you for teaching meditation. Maybe this is for Ajahn Brahm. I'll read it out anyway. No words to express my gratitude towards you for teaching meditation. So much fun and relaxing, in so much fun and a relaxing way. It's amazing how you teach so deep Dhamma without making it so complicated. I can't think how I am lucky enough to be born in this time to learn the spiritual path from the world's best spiritual teachers like you and Ajahn Brahmali. Your kindness, humbleness, wisdom and compassion is so inspiring, so down to earth. Thank you for building all the facilities to practice the path. Thank you, Ajahn Chah, not only for guiding Ajahn Brahm, also for sending him to Perth to spread the Dhamma in the West. Thank you for being here for us, Ajahn. Thank you for a wonderful retreat. Much merit to Robin, Christina, Maya, and all the others who helped us to practice these 9 days. Much merit for all the dana donors. Without you, we can't put this much of free time for our practice. Thank you, everyone. That's very nice. Thank you for sharing with us. There is a book called First Free Women, a collection of poems by the earliest Buddhist nuns. I find their descriptions of suffering and freedom incredibly raw. Are you familiar with these poems? Thank you. Yes, I think, is this book by Matty Weingeist or somebody? Yeah, I think so. So the poems are from the Therigatha, which are poems from enlightened nuns, and there's also ones from enlightened monks at the time of the Buddha. The book, I am a little bit familiar with it. It's a little bit controversial, actually, because I think he got into a bit of trouble because it was presented as though it was a translation of the poems, but his translation is a little bit free, and he added a lot of his own ideas to it. So I think he had to stop marketing it as a translation of the poems. And yeah, but I am a little bit familiar with the book. Yeah, nothing to add. Is there any rule that you have to bow down after the teacher? No, this is specifically for dear Venerable Achala. No. No, I don't think it's not his handwriting. No, no. There's no rule that I have to bow after Ajahn Brahm. I just like Ajahn Brahm a lot, so and it's easier. It's much easier to follow somebody. I realized that this retreat because most of my monastic life, I've always had like other nuns to follow behind, and this is probably one of the first times where I have nobody to follow. So it's a lot easier to have somebody to go ahead of you to follow, basically. So I like being the less junior one. From your point of view, what is the most difficult aspect of being a nun as opposed to being a monk? What can the lay community do to ease these issues, if any? You're looking at me. That's a hard question for me to answer because I don't know what it's like to be a monk, basically. I'm a nun, and I'm actually very happy to be a nun. I did, actually, when I first ordained, I was a little bit jealous because the monks live with Ajahn Brahm. And my dad basically got to hang out with Ajahn Brahm more than I did. But I'm kind of over that now, and I'm just happy being a nun, and I'm happy with the conditions that we have at Dhammasara. Having said that, I think the conditions that we have in Perth are actually quite rare for nuns. So there's many nuns monasteries in the world that don't have the same support that we do. So again, I just say visit whatever nuns' monasteries are local to you and try to support them. And there's this one, it just says why. Huh? Yes, there's nothing. But actually, I don't really know, I'm just saying it. Yeah. Okay. Dear Aya, where is good for a layperson to start if they want to learn a bit of Pali? Much metta to you all. There's a book called Pali Primer by Lily De Silva, which that's a really good book if you're doing it on your own. It's very easy, basically, and straightforward. And once you've done that, I think there's lots of resources online. I think the Wisdom and Wonders, you've done it more recently, yeah.
Also, check out Sutta Central and go to Discourse, Discuss and Discover. And that's like basically a forum. And often there is Pali courses or classes being held. I know John Kelly had been doing some, and you can all, there's often links to provide, basically they'll do it via video, and sometimes even if you can't attend the video live stream, then you can, someone might record it and things like that. So my recommendation is, yeah, the Pali Primer is a great place to start, and then to have a bit of support while working through another book or something like that, then check out Sutta Central and see what's on at the moment or coming up.
I think there's also a website called Wisdom and Wonders, and you can actually follow, they have recordings of classes that Ajahn Brahm did for the monks, and I think you can follow it on that website. Yeah, learning to read Pali, yeah. How long was the whole process of becoming a nun? Could you please explain? I think we did that. What is the difference between a samaneri and a bhikkhuni? Would one of the samaneris like to answer?
So samaneri only have like 10 precepts, like lay people 5, right? And then if the lay people want to add more, they can add like 8. But novice or samaneri have like 10. It's only add 1 more. We cannot receive money or gold. While bhikkhuni have like 311 precepts. So more than monks. Monks is only 227 precepts. Yeah.
And I think probably some of the rules that are quite different. So the novices, they can dig the earth and cut plants, and they can also store food.
And their food doesn't need to be offered.
So their food doesn't need to be offered. Yes. So if we go on like Tudong or something, it's helpful to take a novice because she can feed you. She can feed you. Oh. It just says, it just wants to know why there's only 3 nuns coming for lunch. It's because Venerable Anupama had a bit of a stomach bug. Basically, that's all it was. There's no mysterious reason.
So on the first day, from the first lunch, I got a stomach bug, but I took extra food at breakfast time, and Robin very kindly also gave me some extra food, so I didn't starve. I think the stomach bug was actually a blessing in disguise because it gave me a really good reason to rest. So I got a lot of rest early on in the retreat. I was very, very tired when I came here. Yeah, I feel like I'm still recovering from my anagarika here, and this break was a much needed break for me, so yeah, it was great.
Yeah. I think they say that stomach problems are like a occupational hazard. for monastics. How to know if monastic life is right for me? I keep considering it, but I'm always uncertain about it. Just come and stay at Dhammasara, basically. It's one of those things that you can't figure out by sitting at home and wondering about it. When I was thinking about visiting Dhammasara for, I think, 4 months, I was umming and ahhing because I had to take a lot of time off work, and Ajahn Kalyana, who I was going to his monastery in Melbourne, he kind of said with some things, the proof is in the pudding. So you just have to do it and see what happens. So come and try it out. You know, you might come and stay at Dhammasara for a week and you might think it's terrible, and then you'll know at least monastic life at Dhammasara is not for you. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, really what Venerable Achala has said, you just have to try it out, you know, and just give it a go. And there's no harm in trying, you know. You can disrobe if you decide it's not for you at any time, you know, so don't feel like you have to give up everything. And it's a gradual process. You start with the 8 precepts and step along to the next, you know, to Samaneri 10 precept when you feel you're ready. So there's no harm in just giving it a go. That's the only way. No one can tell you if it's going to be right for you or if it's the right thing to do. You just have to try it and give yourself time and have a go at it.
There's only a few more questions, so I think we're doing well. Okay, this is easy one. Maybe someone else can answer. Can a bhikkhuni become an ajahn?
I think Ajahn is the term for teacher. It came from Thai forest tradition. So basically they give the title Ajahn for the monk who already have like 10 rains. Yeah. So same apply as a nun.
Yeah. So that's why Ajahn Hasapanna is Ajahn Hasapanna. So we have a few Ajahns at Dhammasara now, yes. Okay. Oh. To all graceful bhikkhunis. Which one's that? Sorry. What does a typical day look like for a bhikkhuni? What are the joys and challenges of being a bhikkhuni? Please tell some of the vows a bhikkhuni takes. How do you balance your monastic life with the needs of the community and personal well-being, loving kindness? Hey, did Ajahn Brahm write this? No, maybe not. Okay, maybe not. Shall we start with some of the rules? That's easy.
Sure.
Yeah. There's a rule that I shouldn't frighten another bhikkhuni. Tickling. I can't tickle another bhikkhuni.
No hiding your stuff.
Yeah, I can't hide her stuff. So there's a rule that says I can't hide her bowl or her sitting cloth or her sewing kit. Obviously, there's like the more serious rules, like we have to be celibate, we can't kill people. But I think those ones are fairly obvious. There's a rule about not throwing a bucket of urine and feces over the monastery wall.
You want to take the story
you can tell the story.
I can't fully remember the original story as to why that became a rule, but I think it was something along the lines of a nun was a little bit lazy and just couldn't be bothered getting rid of the feces or the urine properly, so just decided to throw it over the monastery wall. And I'm pretty sure there was a gentleman, he might have been a little bit important, I'm not sure, who basically wore it. And that didn't go down very well, so that became a rule. So there's quite some interesting stories in the Vinaya Pitaka, which explains why we have some very obscure, interesting rules. So, yeah.
So it's always like something happened, some monk or nun did something naughty, and then the lay people or the other monks and nuns complained to the Buddha, and then he laid down a rule, basically. But so there's a lot of, even though there's 311, there's quite a few that don't really come up that often in your daily life now, basically. What are the joys and challenges of being a bhikkhuni? A bhikkhuni. I think we kind of covered that, yeah. How do you balance your monastic life with the needs of community and personal well-being? That's a good question. I think it's the same as if you were a layperson. You just have to, obviously you have to look after your family or the people around you, but you also have to balance that with making sure you look after yourself. So being sent here on retreat is always very good for that. Anything else?
I can probably add a little bit more to that about the balance of monastic life with the needs of the community and personal well-being. This has been a challenge for me, and still I am growing in this, and I find it's a constant sort of readjustment, you know, and just allowing myself permission to take that time out when I need to, and to really check in with myself and what I need in that moment. And I mean, sometimes I do have to push myself, and there are things that need to be done in the community. You know, I'm on the fire team. Both of us are on the fire team. So sometimes that can take precedence over certain things. But it's really just it's a constant evaluation and shift. And I think just to give yourself that time for perspective of what's important and keep coming back to that and allow yourself that time out, and that give yourself permission to have that balance between service and taking care of your own needs and what you came to monastic life for. So that is something I've been growing on. And I could probably also touch upon, I think we mentioned a little bit before about a typical day. You know, Venerable Achla sort of touched upon that. And for me, I don't think there's any such thing as a typical day in monastic life. Like, we have our structure, we have our routine of, you know, breakfast at 6:30. There's a few different evening and morning programs, but whenever I try and plan the morning of, okay, today I'm going to get this maintenance job done, it never goes to plan. So, you know, there's always something else that crops up and that needs to be done. And so that can make monastic life interesting, and it can also be a joy, because I've got to do some things that I've really enjoyed, like, you know, working an excavator, learning, you know, doing the chainsaw and things like that, and pushing beyond my boundaries, and also having that courage, that confidence, and that support from Hasapanna and other people in the community, that if I make a mistake, it's very looked upon very differently from, say, in a workplace or something like that. Like, many a times we've done maintenance things and, well, it hasn't exactly gone to plan. We've had to do maintenance on our maintenance, basically. So that has been a real joy, to be able to do different things that I actually never thought monastic life would involve, and we have a lot of fun with that. I have to say, you know, being on the fire team, maintenance and things like that, that has brought me a lot of joy that I didn't really see would be there, and just to know that I'm able to do things, and it's okay to make a mistake, and I've grown from that and had a lot more opportunity from doing those things.
So this is probably one of the worst days I've had at Dhammasara. We have rainwater, and so there's a UV treatment thing behind the library, and there's a UV lamp, and it sits in a glass case. And I think it was the first time that I had to change the UV lamp every year, and I broke the glass case that it was in, but we had a spare. And then when I was putting that in, I broke that one as well. And then I went into the bathroom and I started crying. that was a very challenging day. Here we go. Dear nuns, thank you for choosing this inspiring path. It's wonderful to see your kindness and compassion. Do you get enough support for your monastery? Especially, do you need more financial or physical support for any particular thing? Thank you. I don't deal with the finance stuff, so I'm probably not a good person to ask, but as far as our monastery is very well supported. We definitely have plenty of food. And as Venerable Pramochana said, maybe the one thing that people could help with is like if you're happy to volunteer and help out, like especially if you are a handy person, like you can do outdoorsy type stuff. If you're a plumber or an electrician and you want to ordain, please ordain quickly. So, is there anything else? Then we'll stop breaking things. Okay.
When I was anagarika, I'm very happy if someone's offered to help washing the dishes.
There you go. That's for the anagarikas. So you come and help wash the dishes. Okay, dear Ajahn or Bhikkhunis, do you believe the story about the rules for Bhikkhunis by the Buddha, the 8 Garu Dhammas? Thank you. So I'm doing this one, yes. So I think probably a lot of you know about the 8 Garu Dhammas. So they're these 8 principles to be respected, and in the origin story of how the Bhikkhuni Sangha was established, they are presented as Mahaprajapati Gautami's ordination. So the Buddha basically said, if you take on these 8 rules, that will be your ordination. Now, only, I think, 5 or 5, oh gosh, I should remember this. I think it's 5 or 6, anyway, let's go with 6 of those 8 rules are actually in the Bhikkhuni Patimokkha. So the 311 rules that we keep, there's only 6 of them that are in common with these 8 Garu Dhammas. And so each of the Patimokkha rules obviously has an origin story of how it came to be. Someone did something, right? So those 6 rules also have their own stories. So that's obviously a discrepancy of if these 8 rules were there at the very beginning of the Bhikkhuni Sangha, how come there are origin stories for 6 of them that are in the Bhikkhuni Patimokkha? So there's an obvious discrepancy and a tension there. And I think there's a lot of work done by a monk called Bhikkhu Analayo who has looked at that story. And there are other discrepancies which are not coming to my head at the moment. But I think in practical terms, at Dhammasara, we keep the Patimokkha rules. So we keep whatever is in the Patimokkha, and we're not expected to keep the 8 Garu Dhamma rules. And in particular, I think it's the first one that is a bit like people have a problem with. So it says, if there is a monk who is ordained even just for a day, he is considered senior to a nun who has been ordained for a really long time, because they have this idea that the Bhikkhu Sangha came first, so it's always senior. But that's actually not a rule in our Patimokkha. So when in Perth, within the BSWA, we're not expected to keep that rule. And then obviously if we travel, we just have to look at the context. So the fact that I can't actually remember all of them shows that they don't come up in our lives that often in a practical sense. So sometimes we read these things and they can seem kind of quite harsh and oppressive, but when you actually live life, they don't come up that often, yeah. And even things that might seem a bit oppressive, so the nuns have to ask for avada or for teachings from the monks once a fortnight. But it feels very natural. Ajahn Brahm's our teacher. It's like we want him to teach us. So at the moment in this context, it doesn't feel too upsetting, basically. I think that was the last question. No, we already read that one.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's it. Thank you very much for very patiently listening. Yes. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. Yeah, she's-
I just thought I'd ask, just because we have a little bit of time, if anyone else had any questions that they wanted to ask, then please feel free to go ahead and ask them now. Otherwise, we can depart early.
Okay. Thank you very much for patiently listening to us. Oh, and thank you to the two monks as well.